All right, this week on the podcast, I am joined by Skip Robinson. Many people know Skip locally from his background in bodybuilding. We had an awesome conversation talking about all the things he did growing up, leading up to his bodybuilding years. But honestly, he had story after story after story. Cracked me up. It was an awesome conversation. So if you know Skip, you'll love it. If you don't know Skip, you'll love him after you listen to it. I think you'll really enjoy it. So give it a listen. This is the Randy Forcier podcast. You can do me a favor. As always, subscribe on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Really would appreciate the support with that. Thanks again for listening. So here's Skip. All right, I'm here with Skip Robinson. Skip is a local legend, father of a good friend of mine, Joe Robinson. Excited to have him on the podcast today. Skip, we made it happen. Thank you, man.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Sorry it took so long, but I'm glad you're here that we can celebrate my birthday together.
Is it your birthday today?
Yeah, I'm 248 years old. It's
You look good.
The Botox, it works.
You look good.
Yeah, it's the Marine Corps birthday today.
Oh, it is. Oh, happy Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So I did not realize that you served. I didn't even plan on talking about this, but tell me about that.
Yeah. I was just going through, I wanted to post on social media. I was just looking back. I went in at 63 last century. 63, my God. And I get out in 69 reserve time.
Yep.
And I was just looking at some old photos, and it's like 60 years ago, whatever, and 60 pounds ago.
Were you deployed anywhere?
No, I was fortunate. They never called us up, Now you're probably the first to go, but no, I was fortunate enough not to have to go. So.
Yeah, enrollments are down. I imagine. I don't know what percentage, but it probably is a lot harder to get people to want to join any branch of the military.
It was different back then.
What do you mean? Did you feel obligated to do it, or
no?
National pride.
I remember my father. I applied to all colleges, every college in the state of Maine. Mm-hmm. No. It was something about I stayed back a year in high school that kind of they held that against me. And I was kind of a social butterfly back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can remember them calling me down to the office, and my parents were there, and I'm trying to think of Dan. I can't even think of the guy, Mahoney. They named Mahoney middle school after him.
Okay.
And him and Arthur Scott, they called me in the office, the assistant principal, and they gave me the bad news that they were going to have to hold me back my sophomore year. And so I hung my head. And then when I went outside the door, I did a Ray Bork like I had scored the Stanley Cup winners. That didn't bother me a bit. If they thought that was going to punish me, wrong message,
Oh,
but it was good. I eventually got out. I did graduate, but back to I applied to all the schools. And then my father took me up to Maine Central Institute for a prep school.
Yeah.
I remember walking in, and there was a friend of mine, Terry Cook. He was going to school there. And he looks at me, and he's with a couple of friends, and he says, "Go in the Marines." He says, "Don't come up here."
Really? And that's what did it for you? So they
didn't like it, So I had a friend that I was hanging around who had an older brother that was in the Marines. Mm-hmm. He was one of the tough guys at South Pole in high school, and that's what I wanted to do. So
you did that for 6 years after graduating.
Yeah. What happened is we decided to go in reserve time, because then what they did after you get out of boot camp, Paris Island, they'd bring you together, and then they would promise you different things to make you to go over, regular time. Because most everyone was getting 0300 infantry. Yep. They would leave at the end of boot camp. They would say so and so 0300 or whatever the MOS is where they were going. And 90% of the people were infantry. And
that's front of the line stuff, right? That's probably where you don't want to be.
Yeah, my father had opened up a grocery store, Robinson's Market, out where Red Bank Village is now.
Yep.
And was and still is. And he had taught me how to meat cut. And he said, if you come back here, I'd like to have you help me at the store. so I've obligated to do that. So I did. And then, I, did the reserve time with that. So,
And then after your time in the military, that's when
yeah.
you got into working out, bodybuilding, all that sort of stuff that most people know you for.
Oh God, no, there's all kinds of a couple more phases in my life
No
before
kidding.
to the good stuff. First thing when I got out, I wasn't weightlifting or anything.
Mhm.
Sunning out in my backyard, front yard actually, Shay's Lounge, and they used to have the Portland Press Evening Express back then.
Yeah.
And it was delivered, and I'm looking at it, and I was kind of 19 years old, 20 years old. I was bored.
Yeah.
Now I got to do something, it was exciting. And I looked, and a friend of mine started a skydiving club, Falling Star Sport Parachute Club. And it was out where Next Gen Gym is, out on the one going out to Scarborough. There used to be a road.
Not Payne Road.
Payne Road, maybe?
Yeah,
I don't
Payne
know.
Road. Yeah.
Anyway, there was a small airport out there. Port of Maine, it was called. Geez, how can I remember this stuff? I don't know.
Wow. That stuff's long gone too, by the way. I don't remember any of that
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I went out and joined that. It's something about me, but it's about people in general. They have to belong to something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's a quilting club or, anything, to join, to be a member of something.
Yeah.
And I had done the Marines, so that was a good group. So I went to this parachute club and jumped for a few years and got my jump master certification so I could teach.
Yep.
And, I did that. And I was fortunate to survive 4 malfunctions where the parachute didn't open. I mean, I know guys that have made thousands of jumps and never had a malfunction. My first 126, I had 4.
Oh my
So,
God. What does that
yeah.
even mean? Is that because, well, first of all, does someone else pack your parachute or do you pack your own
No,
parachute?
you pack your own.
And what was it? A faulty part? I mean, was it packed wrong or what? Do you even know what it
Well,
was?
this parachute I got a good deal on. Little did I know the guy had a couple of malfunctions with it. He didn't tell me that. He was from out of state. So I bought it and I jumped. And the first thing you do when your parachute deploys, when it opens, you look up to check to make sure it's open, God, I look up and it's half open. And I said, this is not good. So that happened to me, like I said, 4 times. One time I landed in a tree, another time in some water. But the last time, the most memorable one was Channel 6 was going to come out and film. So they were going to be in an adjacent airplane and show us jumping out and stuff like that. And I had just jumped and it was getting dark. And this is going to tell you a lot about me, how I was back then. But they said, Skip, you're not going to have enough time to pack your parachute. We got to get going. I just grabbed a parachute, just grabbed it, put it in the backpack, sealed it up, and get on the plane. And the 2 guys, the other 2 guys, they looked at me and they said, I wouldn't want to be jumping with that, They said, it's not going to open. I said, yeah, it'll be fine. And I jumped and it didn't open. And I look up and, it's like quarter of the parachute is there. And when you're falling, you don't know, even with a half a parachute, you still think you're just floating down.
Yeah.
But when you go by somebody that's got their parachute open, fully deployed, you're going right by them and they're yelling, what's that? What do you call it? I'm trying to think. Cut away, cut away. We had 2 quick releases right here.
Yep.
And when you squeeze them together, then you start falling again and your parachute takes off.
Yeah.
And I had this reserve that was a parachute. I think it was packed back in the Korean War because this was in the late 60s.
Never used it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, so when you're free falling, you don't feel like you're falling. It's hard to explain. It's like you're just suspended. Mm-hmm. You can feel the wind going by you and stuff. But once you release and start to fall, it's like falling off a cliff. I mean, now you know you're falling. And you go head down and your feet are sticking up in the air. And the reserve was on the front. You had this ripcord, you pull it, And we didn't have the little parachute, the emergency one
Yeah.
that pops out and it drags the thing. We didn't have one of those. So you had to reach down and manually feed it out. And you got to have that going through your mind, and don't let it get caught in your feet.
Yeah.
So here I'm going head down like this, doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden, wham, it just snapped me up.
Yeah.
And then when you land, you try to run around it because it was a little breezy. It was in March, I think.
Yeah.
And when I landed, I get up to run to chase it, but the wind was keeping it ahead of me. And I'm chugging, trying to run around it to collapse it.
Yeah.
Man, there was this big pond there, and I splashed into it, and it's dragging me through the water. And I get up, it had the weeds through my mouth and all that. But it was a crazy time.
Did they get that all on tape? Channel 6?
No.
Yeah.
No.
How high were you before that secondary parachute kicked in? Is that something like you're a few hundred feet off the ground? I don't even know how high you are when you skydive.
Yeah, the highest, a 30-second delay is 7,500 feet.
Okay.
I think it's roughly that. And I have jumped as high as a little over 13,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was 7,500, and you'd get down to, if I can remember back in the 60s, around 2,000. You have an altimeter that you look and you see it spinning, going around and around,
Mm-hmm.
And then at 2,000 feet, you open up. Army paratroopers, when they jump, geez, I think it's like 800 feet, 1,200 feet, something real close.
Yeah.
Because they just jump out. They want to get down the ground as fast as they can. So
that is insane. I did not realize that. What were you thinking even going back after 3 malfunctions to even get to the 4th?
Oh, just went back, did it again.
It's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, I love it. I guess when you're that age, coming from the military, you just don't really think of your own mortality at all. You're just like, this is fun.
Yeah. I see those bat wings that they've got now. Back in the day, if we had them, I'd have been doing them.
Yeah.
Just...
bat wings are that thing where they have like webbing between your arms and your body.
Yeah. Thank God they didn't have them.
Would have malfunctioned like 10 times. That's unbelievable. How many jumps did you get in?
I'm 126.
Oh, total. So 100. Was that your last jump?
No.
Okay.
I have a logbook. Whenever you make a jump, you have to record it, the date, how high you jumped, where it was, any remarks about it, and then either the pilot or the jump master signs off on it.
Yeah.
So you can't say, well, I had 1,000 jumps, you get the book to prove it, So
what a run that sounds like. Oh my God.
I even got a chance to practice jump with the Golden Knights, the Army parachute team one time.
Nope.
A friend of mine, when they did an exhibition up to Brunswick, the Naval Air Station, and since he knew him, I think he had been a member at one time, and they come down to our place and we got a chance to jump with them and stuff,
That's
so it was cool. Yeah. A lot of fond, a lot of crazy memories that we will not be talking about. The Mile High Club and all that stuff.
What an animal. That's crazy that was in Scarborough, like off Payne Road. Yeah, just don't. There's no airport there now. It's all developed, but it must have been open fields back then.
Oh, it was back. Can you imagine back in the 60s? Then we used to go in town right after. I'm trying to think of the name of the bar that we used to go. We used to hang out there. It was like it was our own.
$3 Dewey's?
No, it was where Pins and Needles tattoo places. My friend Big Mike owns. What was Cameo? That's what it's called. Cameo.
You guys go hang there afterwards?
My age would remember that. So, awesome. But anyway.
So then what happened, I guess, after the skydiving phase?
Okay. Then when I was towards the end of my skydiving, a couple of my friends, Bruce Chambers and Dave Lundgren, called me one time. I was at my father's place cutting meat. And they said, why don't you come out and start weightlifting with us? I weighed at the time probably I was 5'9", 5'10", whatever, 135 pounds. And they said, come up and start weightlifting with us. And I said, sure. And then I never showed up. And they called me again. And they said, come join us. We got this nice garage. It was in the spring. So I said, maybe. So I said, I got kind of a cold, I said, I don't really feel like it. So they called me back a third time. I said, what the hell? I got to get them off my back. So I went up and we started training 7 days a week. about an hour and a half, 2 hours every time.
No kidding.
And it was in a garage, and we had a Victrola. You probably don't even know what the
No,
Victrola
I don't.
is. But
No, what is it? No clue.
it's like what they have now, the most expensive one's got the arm and the needle you put down on it. So in the wintertime, we'd have the hats, the Navy hats pulled down over jackets, mittens, because there was no heat out there.
Mm.
And I can remember the Beach Boys' greatest hits was the first music that we played out on this Victrola.
Yeah.
And I think Diana Ross and the Supremes, but anyway, this goes back way back. But after I had lifted probably 6 weeks, I went into the cameo with the guys I jumped with. I was still jumping, but it was at the very, very end.
Mhm.
And I can remember Larry Snow, he was playing for Gary and the Counts. And it was a Saturday afternoon. We just got through jumping. I walked in, he looked at me, says, "You look like you're getting bigger." Bingo. That's all he had to say. From that day on, I'll bet you for 30 years, you could count on one hand the times I blew off weight training. I never missed.
So you just loved hearing that. You just like that
yeah.
felt good to hear that someone noticed you'd been working out and you're like, boom, I like that. And then just
I was always small.
Yeah.
I played football at South Portland, kind of not very memorable, scored a few touchdowns, but I scored better out in the social. Never mind. That's another. That's why the 5 years, So I was always small. And I can remember one of my girlfriends said, her friend said, "You turn him sideways, you never even be able to see him." It's just little things like that, words hurt, And so once I started getting bigger, that's all it took. So I was dating this young lady. I won't mention her name. She was Miss Portland and all that good stuff. And I ended up going astray and cheating on her. Okay. She breaks up with me. So, when someone, even if it was my fault, when someone breaks up with you, you just, you don't feel good. You get that gnawing in the stomach and all that. And I'd go out a couple nights and I saw her out there having a good time. That bothered me. So now get this to show you how what my mind was. I says, I'm going to show her what she's missing.
Yeah.
So I started weightlifting, and the time goes on and on. When I saw her again, never. I never saw her again. It's
that's
crazy.
such a great story. It's like so true. When you play that in your mind, and
people will say, "What made you start?" And it's pretty much that. And I had her nieces and stuff in school, and she moved away, but I had her nieces, so I'm sure they told her, how I was or whatever. At least I thought they would. Maybe they didn't. But anyway, I just started doing that, and then a guy was going down to enter the Mr. Maine, and he said, "Come on down and watch me." So I'm riding down there with him. I think it was in Bethel, Maine, maybe at a middle school. Just about 10 people in the audience, and he talked me into entering
on the spot.
Yeah, you don't do that, But anyway, there were 5 people that entered, and I come in 7th because I think the custodian got 6th place and he didn't even enter. That's how bad it was. That was the most embarrassing. When I look back at that, I had no idea what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
When I get out of high school, if you just said to me, "You're going to have some success at weight training," I'd have looked at you and said, "Well, don't you have to weight train or something?" Because that was so far off the radar with me.
Did this Mr. Maine event motivate you?
Oh yeah. It took me, I think, 2 more times to win it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And even today, some of the bigger titles that I've won, people always say he was Mr. Maine or something like that. So it's pretty cool, So from then you just enter the next contest, which is a little bigger. Mm-hmm. And like that. So what I did is I went to I was a power lifter too at the same time. Yeah. I did both. And there was this contest that held at the Boston YMCA, a powerlifting contest that I wanted to enter. And at the same time, there was a Mr. Boston YMCA physique contest, which you can tell by the title is not a very big one, but Boston, you know. So back in those days, they always had the powerlifting contest first, and then the physique would follow it, usually the same judges or whatever. So you could do the physique, it'd be like 10, 11 o'clock at night, you know. So I entered the power meet. I set a record.
Really? For what?
Yeah, the bench press.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, it's 400 or something like that. I weighed like no, it was 3 something because I weighed like 160 some pounds. So I do the physique and I get second. And the guy that beat me was Bruce Lyons, who was a captain in the Marines. He was home on leave. So I'm kind of bumming. And at the end of the show, I'm leaving. And this guy comes out to me. He's got a sport coat on, a camera in his hand. And he introduced himself and he said, "You didn't win, but he said, you've got the most potential." Wow. And I said, "Oh, good, thank you." And he said, "What you got to do," he says, "you've got to go to California and train out to Goals." And I'm saying, yeah, here I'm a school teacher. I was making $7,600 a year. Yeah. And he wants me to go to California. He said, "I'll send you the plane ticket." He says, "I'll meet you in New York." He was an architectural photographer from Connecticut. So he's going to play a major role in this. So I said, okay, I'm a big boy and take care of myself. So I met him in New York. We go to California and fly to California, rent a car. And I can remember being on the freeway, seeing the big green sign with the white letter in Santa Monica. And I knew that's where the bodybuilders were, you know, this is right adjacent to it. So we go there. I want to meet Arnold. Yeah. So he goes back to the hotel and stuff. I take the car and I drive up. The place is closed. It's around 10 o'clock at night, 11, whatever. I'm bumming. I want to meet him. So I sleep in the car. I haul off the side of the road. I want to be the first one in the morning, you know. I don't know what time he gets there or whatever. So the next morning, I hear this, I woke me up with this knock on the window. And I looked out at the window, and there's this guy with long blonde hair, headband, and all that. And that's the one where I went, you know, Jesus, you know, I thought I was looking at the Lord looking down at me, you know. And but it was Dave Draper, and who I knew from the magazines. He was a blonde bomber. He was in movies, and he was the biggest name bodybuilder until Arnold come along. Yeah. Joe Weider put all his money in. If you could make Weider money, then he'd put you in the magazines, front covers up, because it sells magazines. So anyway, I go in and start working out. I want to get a pump before, and I said, "What time's Arnold come in?" He says, "Around 9. So this is around 6, 7. So it's going to be a long workout. But anyway, he come in, and I just walked right up to him. And it was funny, the way he pronounced my name was like Skeep, like that, you know. But he said, "Where are you from?" I says, "Maine." He says, "Where's that?" And he says, "Is that up by Boston?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "I've been to Boston once." And so that's how I met him. From then on, every time I went out there, if I got a chance to train with him, I would. And if not, you just train around him and, you know, hang around.
But they were open to that, so you could go into this place and interact with these guys, and they would talk to you. And it wasn't like you were beneath them.
No, because I had one Mr. Maine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Now I know you probably read in this thing I sent you, but they all had nicknames. Yeah. Arnold was the Oak. Dave Draper was the Blonde Bomber. Franco Colombo was the Sardinian Lion. Frank Zane was the Professor. Even Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk. So they had to have a name for me. So I had won Mr. Old Orchard Beach. I did it as a favor. Yeah. This was after a few times. This was like 3 or 4 years later. Yeah. And so I go out there, and Zabo Kazuski, Mr. Abs, Zabo, he's famous out there. And used to always wear sunglasses indoors. I mean, he appeared in movies, gladiator movies and stuff like that. And he looks at me and he said, Old Orchard Beach. So from that on, they call me Mr. Crabapple Beach.
That was the nickname that stuck, huh?
But at least there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So it was more of a clique. When those gyms back then, I think it was cement blocks, had a couple of big windows in the front, skylights, very plain, all men in the beginning. And it was not like it is now.
Just there was dumbbells and bench presses. And
no, they had the free weights, and then they had some machines, because Joe Gold, that owns Gold's Gym, he was a merchant marine, but he was a machinist. And so he made the machines, the simpler ones, a leg extension, a lat pull down, things like that. And an interesting story about that, Joe Gold, after having the gym, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, he sold it to Ken Sprague. Now, Ken Sprague, you probably know, was a porno star in Dakota, his name was.
Yeah.
And he bought the gym. And Joe Gold had to wait, I think it was 5-7 years, whatever it was, a non-compete clause.
Yep.
So after the time went by, he went down the street, I don't know, a mile down the road, and opened up World's Gym. Mm-hmm. So Joe Gold started them both, So I can remember him standing out on Pacific Avenue. I think it was Pacific Avenue. Bunch of boxes. His T-shirts had just come in, and the gym was upstairs. The World's Gym. Mm-hmm. It was a little more modern than the other one because it was newer. And a lot of the bodybuilders would train at both places. So he shows me, he says, "Look at this shirt, Skip." And it had the gorilla lifting the bent barbell on the globe.
Yeah. And
then on the back, it showed the same gorilla doing the same thing, but his bare ass in the back. It was a back shot, like that. And he was all excited about that. So
that's awesome. So you had a good relationship with him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What would you guys do out there? Like, how long did you spend out there?
The longest I ever spent out there was the summer. I had signed a contract for that summer. And then when I would go out on February vacations, April vacations, as often as I could.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, Joe Weider, when I was under contract with him, he'd pay my plane ticket out there.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, the small amount of money I was making at the time. And I had Joe at the time, not in the beginning, but yeah, I did. Joe was just born.
Who was the guy that first saw you at that competition in Boston? You said he played a big role in your life. Yeah. You say he's an architectural photographer. So it's like, what did he have to do with this whole world of bodybuilding?
He just was fascinated by bodybuilding. And he, like I said, he brought me out there. I stayed with him sometimes. One time he had a place down the Marina Del Rey. We stayed there. One in Beverly Hills, like that. Nice guy. I did not know. Well, at the time, when Ken Sprague took the original Gold's Gym and he moved it up into Santa Monica, from Venice up to Santa Monica, he sold it. And Ed Connors, the photographer, bought it. Now, he had, I think back then, if I had $10,000, I could have been part of that. But 10,000, 10 million, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But him, Peter Grimkowski, and I'm forgetting his name. I think it's Denny. Oh, I'm friends with him too. But I'm sorry. They bought it. And then what he did was he franchised the name to over 700 Gold's Gyms around the world. And then he ended up selling them. And he wrote a book about it called The Three Musketeers, not Musketeers, Three Musketeers. And it's one of the things he did. I was one of his first few house guests. Pete Grimkowski was the first one.
Yep. And
he, over the course of from then until now, he has had over 500 house guests.
And you're one of the, wow.
Yeah. And some of them, John Cena, he got him into wrestling.
No kidding.
He got that, yeah. in the book, John Cena writes the prelude or whatever it is, the beginning of the book. But that Three Musketeers is a great book. It explains everything about how he bought it, got it started, how he franchised it, and all that. And then he tells about different house guests, the more interesting ones. I'm on page like 500 and something, just mentioned this one. I wasn't interesting enough, but it's a great book.
Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
Guy must be doing okay for himself after all those franchises. Jeez,
yeah.
Some serious money.
He sold the businesses,
Yeah.
And sold it. And so I still keep in contact, maybe once a month or something like that. Great guy. And he's helped the Ultimate Warrior, the wrestler. He got him started. Oh, I think he didn't get Sylvester Stallone started at John Van Damme, but I think they stayed at his place. Mentions it in the book, all the different, the celebrities and stuff that stayed with him,
That's very cool. So what was the ending of your bodybuilding time? Like, when did you decide to move on from that?
1995 and 96. I entered my last contest as a Masters Mr. America. I'm trying to think. I got married just a second time, just after that. My body was aching. I was forever going to the orthopedic associates for this, that, and stuff. And I had always entered, like when I was 30, I entered the Mr. America, 50, and I was going to do it when I was 60. And I remember my shoulder was bothering me or something. I went into the orthopedic guy and he looked at me and he said, if you're not going to make a lot of money, he said, you might want to back off a little, go more for the longevity.
Yeah.
And because every time I'd pick up the pace, then I'd break down.
Yeah.
And I ended up having a shoulder replacement surgery on this one. And when you have a replacement, the development is shot. It doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Like when you reach a high level to compete, you don't want to have a glaring error like that, So since then, I've had both shoulders replaced and both hips replaced. So I'm pretty bionic on that.
So but you're okay with that, I assume. Just getting a chance to talk with you. It's like no regrets, obviously. Great experiences, like ton of stuff, like whatever, you know what I mean? Show a couple shoulders, couple hips, all that stuff. No big deal. Whatever. Wouldn't have done it any differently.
No.
Yeah.
I might not have trained the 3 to 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And being a power lifter, you lift extremely heavy weights. And I remember Arnold, the last time that I saw him in California, I was leaving, I was heading out for the airport and he called me over and told me, he said, sit down here beside me. And what Arnold says, when he tells you to do something, you do it, So, and he mentioned, he says, I remember what he said, he says, you got a beautiful upper body. He says, but you got to work your legs. And, and I did. And another thing that stuck with me too, is he said, you're good at powerlifting, you're good at bodybuilding. I'm saying, good at bodybuilding. I won Mr. Maine and Mr. All that. I'm just, and he says, pick one. And he says, be very good at it. So I chose the bodybuilding.
Yeah. How long ago was that? When was the last time you saw him?
When he was on the Governor's Council of Fitness and Sports, he went around to every state.
Yeah.
So I had trained McKernan, the governor, and he called me one time and he said, Arnold's coming to visit the state. And they're going to have, like we're doing here, Zoom TVs to all the high schools, the colleges in the state. And he said, you might want to come up. And I said, I sure do. So I went up there, and that's the last time I got to talk with him and stuff. It was kind of funny. Joe can tell you this story. When I walk in, the stage is like facing us, and I'm over kind of to the side. And Arnold comes out with the governor, and he's sitting like I can look, but he's kind of facing sideways from me. And I hadn't seen him prior to this thing. And McKernan said, after Arnold talked, he said, I'm going to open it up, and the people, different colleges, high school, they could ask questions, and the people in the audience could ask questions. But before we start, he says, I think the first question should be with his former training partner, Skip Robinson or something. So I'm swaggering up to the thing and I hear him go, I remember him. And he goes, Skip, he says, he says, flex your lats. And then he goes, oh, I see you are. Like that. So it was, he had already done his Conan movie and stuff.
Yeah.
And the question I asked him is, did he miss the guys back when we were out there training, the old days, you know, doing that? Because I knew, you know, what his answer was going to be, you know, and he did. He said that was the better times when he was back doing that.
Well, he exploded to a whole different level of celebrity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you see his documentary?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. You notice he said that he missed having the muscles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's true. When you get in peak condition for a contest, you can't keep that.
Yeah.
That's only like for a day or whatever. But the rest of your life, you're looking at that picture and you're always judging yourself to how you looked at one time in that best picture, you know?
I bet. Yeah. You work so much on your body and that's just the way you picture yourself, but it's not always that way. Like you said, what's working out look like for you nowadays, given everything you just said about your body? Are you doing anything to stay in shape? Like walking?
Yeah. I train, I try to do a little every day. Like this week will only be 3 because I've had the dental appointments and stuff like that. But I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and get caught up on the news to make sure the world hasn't come to an end, but that's another story. And then in the sports and stuff like that, and get a nice fire in the fireplace. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while when I look over, I'm looking out at the lake.
That's
like
right.
That. Well, and loons and stuff will go floating by. They catch my attention. So anyway, then my first client's at 6. And I have them lined up 6, 7, 8, and 9. I get done at 10. One time a week, I'm helping this guy get ready for a contest. So I'm helping with his posing, and so I train him at 10. And then what I'll do is I'll train after. I've got a waiting list of people trying to get in with me to train them. Every client I have is long-term. They sign up for packages of 10. And they just keep re-signing like that. Because if they lose their spot, then it's gone, you know. And
what you're doing, is it bodybuilding focused?
No, it's 75, 80% of my clients are females, okay? And they all want to do their legs and glutes, you know. So do I specialize in that? But also some of them are competitors. The only ones I'm going to train now are people that know what they're doing or they're competitors, because I only have so many openings, you know. But I've got one retired attorney, a lady, Mary Jean Crowder. She's tough as nails, tough as they come, but she doesn't compete, but she's a friend and she's been with me, 10 years probably anyway. And then I have this other friend attorney, James Bolus. If you drink and drive, he's the one that gets you off or tries to. He's been with me like 20, 25 years.
Oh, wow.
But the rest are all, they range age from, I don't know, 18 to, I don't know, 30, 35, like that. So.
Where do you train out of?
Foley's Fitness.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Foley's. Yeah.
Oh, have you been there?
I have not. I've only heard of it. It sounds very sweet. It looks like a really nice place.
It's the best gym that I've ever been in.
Really? That's awesome.
Oh, it is. It's the thing that we're known for down there is the cleanliness. It's clean. And it's got all the latest equipment. And also, we're opening up a place in Cumberland.
It's going to be another Foley's?
Yeah. I say we are going to, because I'm part of the Foley family. So I can say that.
That's awesome. No, I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Oh.
I wish I could check it out. Maybe at some point. I do know a few people that go there. So
we've got 27, 28, 29, I don't know, trainers there, and they're all good.
What's the membership like over there? Must be, I mean, I don't know if you give that, they might not give that information away, but must be a ton of people that have that level of training staff.
Yeah. It's a busy place. I think we've got close to 4,000 members. So yeah, it's good. In Scarborough's growing.
It really is, especially right where that place is. That Foley's in Scarborough is close to the highway, but between Route 1 and Maine Road, and then all that Scarborough Downs stuff is going on. It's that place is in a really good position.
Yeah, it is.
So over the past, I don't know how, actually, you tell me, like, you've had some skin issues over the later years of your life, right?
Yeah.
I know you had the stuff on the news with Amanda, kind of like a PSA.
Yeah.
How has that part been for you, right? And that's just related to being in the sun a lot.
It's like anything. It's genetics, okay? But when you spend hours in the sun and in tanning booths, you exacerbate the problem, I had a great tan. I mean, I was the golden child. I always had a dark tan, like that. And now I'm lucky because I've had, oh God, we've got to be going on almost 500 stitches around my face and stuff. That's a lot of cutting.
God. But those are basal cells? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough that it's basal. It's nothing, more serious, than that. And I'm always going to have them. It's just I go every 6 months and check, and if
they tell you what needs to be removed, they'll so are you an advocate for being safe in the sun at this point? Like, you telling people?
Oh no, I still have a membership at no, that's no, no, I'm definitely, that's the one thing that I would do differently, is not bake myself in the sun. Now they have companies that go around to these contests and spray you.
Yeah.
So they can do it the day before and the day of the contest. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. And a tan makes a difference when you're up on stage. You look healthier, the muscles more vibrant and stuff.
So there's nothing to do with any type of scoring or judging aspect to it. It's just like an aesthetic thing.
It's just part of the overall package.
Yeah. So, well, that's good that it was just basal cells and nothing worse than that.
Yeah. The plastic surgeon that I have, God bless him, Dr. Banda, little plug for him. I tell him I'm going to send him people that will want to see him just to get cut and don't even need it, That's how good he is.
No kidding. No kidding. I did not realize that was going on with almost 500 stitches at this point. It's crazy.
Oh, unbelievable. It's every time I'll always ask, I'll say, can you stretch it this way or can you stretch it that way?
So I guess one of the things I wanted to finish up with was, I know you train a bunch of people now, but what advice would you give to maybe yourself back then as someone that was getting into bodybuilding and powerlifting to be successful?
Well, you got to want it. Do you have any kids? You married?
I have 3 daughters. Yeah. One of them's friends with Joe's daughter.
Okay. So, you have a son or a daughter that you want them to play sports, okay? Or practice the piano, we'll say. And I don't want to practice. Or you're after them all the time. You got to go practice, go do that. If you want something, nobody has to tell you that. Nobody told me to go, you got to go weightlift or something like that. Your main focus is on that. So commitment, and you got to be consistent in small gains. Don't say I'm going to be this way down the road, because like anything, it takes 10,000 hours. Remember the book they wrote about that?
I talked about this last week with someone. We talk about it all the time, but you put in your 10,000 hours and then some.
Yeah, I've done it. So I've done more than the 10,000, but there's a lot of drugs involved now at the major level and stuff. And there are so many people doing it. Your chances to get into the top is like getting to the top of the medical profession or being a pro baseball player. Competition is tough. And, you got to want it. And then, it's great to do it for fitness and health and like that. If that's what you want to do, then that's, I highly recommend, that, because it's a good, healthy lifestyle. Strengthens your bones, everything. It's a mood elevator, everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Skip, I appreciate you coming on the pod. I loved hearing all the stories. You cracked me up with some of them. Can't wait to talk to Joe after this. And I'll look forward to meeting up in person at some point.
we're going to have to do another one because you never touched on my motorcycle life, my gang related. So we'll save that for another time.
I do want to do another one with you. I feel like I have a whole bunch more things I want to talk about. So it was awesome. It flew by. So we'll do it again.
I appreciate it. You know,
And,
sorry it took so long to get me on here, you know.
No, it was good. It was good, man. I appreciate the time. So we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.